Senators of the Republic.
The 32nd session of the Senate, the second regular session of the 19th Congress is hereby called to order. The chamber will be led in prayer today by our distinguished colleague, Apo Amy Marcos.
Let us pray today as the great poet president of the United States, Abraham Lincoln, prayed long ago, and paraphrase. Fondly do we hope, fervently do we pray, that this mighty scourge of political discord and national disunity may speedily pass away, with malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right, as God gives us to see the right. Let us commence the work that we are given, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for those who shall have borne the great sacrifice of our nation. The fields where they work, the embattled sea, and in the workshops, offices, and schools, so that we may truly do all that we seek to achieve and cherish, a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations. So help us God.
Amen. Secretary, please call the roll of members.
Roll call of members. The Honorable Senator Angara, Senator Binay, Senator Cayetano Alan, Senator Cayetano Pia, Senator De La Rosa, Senator Ejercito, Senator Escudero, Senator Estrada, Senator Gatchalian, Senator Go, Senator Ontiveros, Senator Lapid, Senator Legarda, Senator Marcos, Senator Padilla, Senator Pimentel, Senator Poe, Senator Revilla, Senator Tolentino, Senator Tulfo, Senator Villanueva, Senator Villar Cynthia, Senator Villar Mark, the Senate President.
With 22 senators present, the chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Before I proceed, may we just acknowledge some guests from the gallery. We have with us the hardworking Governor of Ilocos Norte, Mr. President, Governor Matthew Joseph Manotoc.
Yes, welcome to your Senate, Governor. And who happens to be also the son of our distinguished colleague, Apo Amy Marcos.
I was about to say the dashing senator from Ilocos Norte, who is wearing pink today, Mr.
I know,
President.
she looks lovely in pink.
Mr. President, at this juncture, I move that we dispense with the reading of the Journal of the 31st Session, Wednesday, November 22, 2023, and consider the same as approved. So move, Mr. President.
There have been no objection to the motion. Motion is approved.
Mr. President, I move that we proceed with the reference of business.
There be no objection. We ask Secretary to proceed with the reference of business.
Bills on first reading, Senate Number 2484, providing for the sustainable management of forests and forest lands and for other purposes, Senator Estrada.
To the Committees on Environment and Finance.
2485, further amending Section 10B of RA 10160 by Senator Revilla Jr.
To the Committee on Rules.
2486, establishing national preventive mechanism in compliance with the optional protocol to the Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman, or Degrading Treatment or Punishment, and for other purposes, Senator Lapid.
To the Committees on Justice and Finance.
2487, strengthening the Commission on Human Rights as a national human rights institution and for other purposes, Senator Lapid.
To the Committees on Justice and Finance.
2488, protecting the rights of internally displaced persons and penalizing the acts of arbitrary internal displacement, Senator Lapid.
To the Committees on Justice, Human Rights, Social Justice, Ways and Means and Finance.
2489, amending RA 10361 or Batas Kasambahay, Senator Tolentino.
To the Committee on Labor and Employment.
2490, providing free access to government websites from telecommunication providers and for other purposes, Senator Marcos.
To the Committees on Public Services, Public Information and Mass Media.
Resolutions. Proposed Senate Resolution 857, congratulating and commending the FIBA Local Organizing Committee, the Samahang Basketball ng Pilipinas, as well as the private sector and all government agencies, and instrumentalities for the successful hosting of the 2023 FIBA Basketball World Cup by Senators Angara, Zubiri, Villanueva, Ejercito, Binay, Gatchalian, and Poe.
To the Committee on Rules.
858, commending and congratulating all Filipino medalists of the 19th Asian Games, Senator Angara.
To the Committee on Rules.
859, directing the appropriate committees of the Senate to conduct an inquiry on the plans and programs of the government to solve the worsening traffic congestion in Metro Manila and in other highly urbanized cities of the country, Senator Villanueva.
To the Committee on Public Services.
860, commending and congratulating the Philippine delegation to the 2022 Asian Games held from 23 September to 8 October 2023 in Hangzhou, China for winning 4 gold, 2 silver, and 12 bronze medals and for ably representing the country, Senator Estrada.
To the Committee on Rules.
861, commending and congratulating the Philippine contingent to the 2023 World Combat Games held in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia from 20 to 30 October 2023 for winning 3 gold, 5 silver, and 5 bronze medals, Senator Estrada.
To the Committee on Rules.
862, calling for an inquiry into the regulatory framework covering online gig economy platforms, particularly those involved in food and parcel delivery, Senator Ontiveros.
To the Committee on Science and Technology, Trade and Commerce, and Entrepreneurship.
863, directing the Senate Committee on Public Order and Dangerous Drugs to conduct an inquiry into the continuous radicalization and recruitment of students in educational institutions to the local communist insurgent groups with the end in view of determining the roles and liabilities of concerned student organizations and educational institutions in preventing the same in connection with the implementation of RA 11479 and other related laws, Senator De La Rosa.
To the Committee on Public Order and Dangerous Drugs.
864, urging the Presidential Communications Office to strengthen the public information and awareness campaign on matters of public concern relating to the country's national defense and security in the West Philippine Sea, subject to limitations provided by existing laws and other issuances, Senator Padilla.
To the Committees on Public Information and National Defense. There's additional reference to business. Please proceed, Secretary.
Message from the House of Representatives, letter from the House informing the Senate that on 7 November 2023, it passed the following House bills in which it requests the concurrence of the Senate. House number 9155, renewing for another 25 years the franchise granted to PEC Broadcasting Corporation under RA 8685.
Committee on Public Services.
House number 5731, LTO Extension Office in Dolores, Eastern Samar, and House number 9300, LTO Extension Office of the Extension Office of the Maritime Industry Authority in Nasipit, Agusan del Norte, appropriating funds therefore.
To the Committees on Public Services and Finance.
9017, establishing a TESDA Assessment Center in Paniki, Tarlac, and appropriating funds therefore. 9302, establishing regular campus of the Eastern Samar State University in Balangiga, Eastern Samar. 9307, establishing a TESDA Assessment Center in Naval, Biliran. 9308, TESDA Assessment Centers in Mangkayan, Kibungan, Kabayan, Atok, Itogon, and Tuba, Province of Benguet. 9309, TESDA Assessment Center in Bacara, Ilocos Norte.
To the Committee, please proceed. Meron pa yata. To the Committees on Higher Technical Vocational Education.
House number 8447, declaring Labo, Camarines Norte Tourism Development Area. 8609, declaring Paracale, Camarines Norte Tourism Development Area. 8610, Santa Elena, Camarines Norte Tourism Development Area. 8719, Jose Panganiban, Camarines Norte Tourism Development Area. 8940, Colombia, Sultan Kudarat Tourism Development Area.
To the Committee on Tourism, Environment, Natural Resources, Climate Change, Finance.
House number 9064, creating a special economic zone in the city of Iloilo, province of Iloilo, creating for the purpose the Metro Iloilo Special Economic Zone Authority and appropriating funds therefore. House number 9065, establishing a special economic zone in the city of Bislig, Surigao del Sur, creating for the purpose the Bislig Special Economic Zone Authority. 9075, establishing a special zone in a portion of Salumagi Cove and the municipality of San Juan, Cabugao, Ilocos Sur, creating for the purpose the Ilocos Sur Special Economic Zone Authority. And 9303, establishing a special economic zone in Mansalay, Oriental Mindoro, creating the Oriental Mindoro Special Economic Zone Authority.
To the Committees on Economic Affairs, Local Government, Ways and Means of Finance.
House number 9128, separating the Paulino Diary National High School, Balong-Balong Extension, converting it into Independent National High School. 9295, separating the Binagabasbasan National High School, Denrica High School Annex, converting it into the Independent National High School. 9296, separating the Bacungan National High School, Sipakong Extension, converting it into an independent national high school. 9297, separating the Bacungan National High School, Mangop Extension, converting it into an independent national high school. 9298, separating the Siocon Central School, JP Brillantes Extension, converting it into an independent elementary school. And House Number 9299, separating Bukana Elementary School, Hatib Asamuddin Extension, converting it into an independent elementary school.
To the Committees on Basic Education and Finance.
9154, granting a franchise to the Romblon Electric Cooperative to construct, install, establish, operate, own, manage, and maintain distribution systems for the conveyance of electric power to the end users in Banton, Corcuera, and Concepcion, Romblon.
To the Committee on Public Services.
9191, establishing an inland freshwater fish hatchery in Aringay, La Union, and appropriating funds therefor.
To the Committees on Agriculture and Food and Finance.
House Number 9335, upgrading the Basilan General Hospital in the city of Isabela, Basilan, into a tertiary hospital, and appropriating funds therefor.
To the Committee on Health, Demography, and Finance.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 7 November 2023, designated Representatives Salo, Gonzales, Primicias Agabas, Olaso, and Magsino as conferees to the Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of House Number 7325 and Senate Number 2221.
The Act, did you mention the title? On the Magna Carta for Seafarers? Yes, Committee on Rules.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 7 November 2023, designated Representatives Arenas, Tanwatco III, Labad-Lapad, Atcharon, Marino, Luistro, Dagook, and Lee as conferees to the Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of House Number 6510 and Senate Number 2001.
Committee on Rules.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 7 November 2023, designated Representatives Ordanes, Amante, Plato, Rodriguez, and Dagook as conferees to the Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of House Number 7535 and Senate Number 2028.
Committee on Rules.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 8 November 2023, it designated Representatives Go and Luistro as additional conferees to the Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of House Number 7535 and 2028.
To the Committee on Rules.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 27 September 2023, it designated Representatives Salceda, Vergara, Cua, Luistro Salo, T. Singson Mihan, and Dagook as conferees to the Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of House Number 4125 and Senate Number 224.
To the Archives.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 27 September 2023, designated Representatives Momo Sr., Madrona, Salceda, Revillo III, and Dagook as conferees to the Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of Senate House Number 6527 and Senate Number 2233.
To the Archives.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 27 September 2023, it adopted Senate Number 1846 as an amendment to House Number 4.
To the Archives.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 27 September 2023, it concurred with the Senate amendments to the following House bills. House Number 6128, House Number 6552, House Number 6553, House Number 6704, House Number 7087, House Number 7088, 7090, 7091, House Number 7397, House Number 7412, and House Number 7961.
To the Archives.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 27 September 2023, it ratified the Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of House Number 4125 and Senate Number 2224.
To the Archives.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 27 September 2023, it ratified the Conference Committee report on the Disagreeing Provisions of House Number 6527 and Senate Number 2233.
To the Archives.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 4 November 2023, it concurred with Senate Concurrent Resolution Number 15.
To the Archives.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 4 November 2023, it adopted House Resolution Number 1411.
To the Archives.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 4 November 2023, it adopted House Concurrent Resolution number 18, in which it requests the concurrence of the Senate.
To the archives.
Mr. President, before we proceed, we'd like to acknowledge the presence of His Excellency Lee Sang-hwa, Ambassador of the Republic of Korea to the Philippines.
Yes, welcome to the Senate, Ambassador, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Mr. President. We also would like to welcome public school teachers from NCR, from Alliance of Concerned Teachers.
Yes, welcome to the Senate,
Thank
to the Alliance for Concerned Teachers. Welcome po.
Mr. President, may we proceed with the GAA, Mr.
Before we
President?
do that, can I just be given just 1 minute to thank everyone for successful APPF 31. Kung pwede pumalakpak po tayo dahil hindi na kayo papagalitan ng mga staff. But I just want to first of all give my heartfelt thanks to the staff and secretariat of the Senate. From the Senate Secretary to Attorney Mavic, all the DepSecs that helped, all the staff of all the senators. I was in the mall yesterday, may nakita pa akong APPF na dignitary and delegate. Ang kasama niya, staff ng mga senador na naka-assign sa kanya. Ganon yung tinatawag nating LOs, no? And they're such a hard-working group of people. I'd like to thank them from the bottom of my heart. I'd also like to thank the senators, each and every one of you who attended, starting off with Senator Amy Marcos for such a beautiful handling of the grounds. Alam mo, yung PICC is older than me, but napaganda po niya yung PICC at pinakita niya kung gaano ka ganda ang mga handicrafts, pati yung mga bonsai, pati yung mga halaman na nilagay doon. So we'd like to thank Amy Marcos and her landscaper, Bobby Gotiao. I'd like also, Gopiao rather. I'd like to also thank all those who were in charge of the committees. Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, Senator Tol Tolentino, Senator Bato de la Rosa, the head of the delegation. Mabuhay po kayo. You rendered the final song that last night. Of course, members of the drafting committee, no other than our Senate President Pro Temp, Senator Lauren Legarda, who was able, together with the drafting committee, single-handedly gather unanimous support for 10 resolutions filed by the Philippines. Perfect. 10 out of 10. And not to mention, in one of those resolutions, we were able to specifically mention freedom of navigation, freedom of overflight, and the respect for the UNCLOS. Kaya mabuhay po kayo, ma'am, together with the drafting committee. Kasama po dyan si Senator Coco Pimentel, Senator J.V. Ejercito is also leading one of the committees. Senator Joel Villanueva, our majority leader, who gave several speeches. Senator Jinggoy Estrada as well was with us. Sino pang missing? Senator Pia Cayetano, who headed the women's group of parliamentarians. And Mark Villar, who was co-chair of the young parliamentarians. Sino po? I don't want to miss. Senator Nancy Binay, he was with us to help take care of the delegates, each and every one of them. Sino pa bang Senator Robin Hood Padilla na nag-alaga po sa ating mga kapatid na Muslim from Indonesia and Malaysia. Senator Cynthia Villar, nakita ko din po siya nag-attend sa mga activities natin noong mga gabi. Senator Grace po as well was there, very hardworking. Sino pang binanggit ko na si Senator Tolentino? Senator Gatchalian, nabanggit ko na rin. And we want to thank Senator Tolentino for hosting the delegates in Tagaytay with the matching rondilla and beauty pageant, ROTC style, doon sa Tagaytay. So, all of us, all of you who made it a perfect APPF, I just want to say, according to all the delegates, we have raised the bar for hosting the APPF. Ngayon na po sila nakakita na napakaganda, napaka-coordinated, napaka-welcoming po nating as host. Pagdating pa lang sa airport, from the time they arrived in the airport to the time they were brought to the hotels, from the time we were doing our plenary as well as executive sessions and committee sessions, they were quite impressed. I could not have I don't think I could not thank you enough for all the action that we have done, particularly the Senate as an organization. Kaya po, wala pong gusto mag-host next year. Wala pong gusto mag-host next year dahil masyadong ginalingan ng Pilipinas ang ating hosting. And we're still trying to figure out who will host in next year's event. And we'd like to thank while the ambassador here is here, the Korean ambassador is here. We also made sure that we approved the resolution on the denuclearization, Ambassador, of Korean Peninsula. Yes, very hard to do it, but we did it. We did it. And so, again, thank you to each and every one of you. And to the Filipino public, may po kami ng paumanhin. Kung minsan may traffic at nagagalit po kayo sa mga escort na may wangwang, ano po yan? That is just to give, of course, courtesy to our guests from 18 countries and 300 delegates from all over the Asia-Pacific region. Once again, congratulations. I just want to put this on record to all those who made it happen. Mabuhay po ang APPF, mabuhay po ang ating bansa, mabuhay po ang ating Senado. So, Majority Floor Leader, I just wanted to put it off my chest.
Thank you, Mr.
So many people to
President.
thank.
But the Bible says, give honor to whom honor is due. Without your leadership, Mr. President, hindi po nangyari ang successful 31st Asia-Pacific Parliamentarians Forum. We still remember those days, Mr. President, when no country would actually step forward and host the 31st APPF. But you were the one, the very first one, Mr. President, na mag-volunteer at ipakita sa mundong ito kung papaano mag-host ng mga parliamentarians dito sa Asia-Pacific region. At yan din po yung dahilan kung bakit lahat po sila nagsasabi. And I am a living testimony, Mr. President. Particularly yung Canadian delegates nagsasabing the best time of their lives, Mr. President, as a parliamentarian, naranasan nila dito sa Pilipinas. Kaya maraming salamat, Mr. President, and I join our colleagues in commending your leadership, Mr. President, in hosting
Thank you,
this
Majority
APPF. Maraming
Thank
salamat.
you.
Mr. President, at this...
Special mention si Senator Cheese for giving us moral inspiration. Was calling us all the time. Yes, Majority Leader.
Mr. President, at this juncture, I move that we resume consideration of House Bill number 8980 under Committee Report number 155. This is the bill pertaining to the 2024 General Appropriations Act. I so move, Mr. President.
There be no objection. Motion is approved.
Mr. President, the parliamentary status of the measure is that we have closed the period of interpellations and debate. And with that, I open to move the period of amendments. I so move, Mr. President.
There be no objection. Motion is approved.
Mr. President, this juncture, I move that we recognize the chairperson of the Senate Committee on Finance, Senator Sani Angara, for his committee amendment. So move, Mr. President.
The very hardworking and intelligent and overworked Senator Angara is recognized for his baby, this budget.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, Majority Leader, dear colleagues. First of all, let me convey my congratulations to you and the body for a stellar hosting of the APPF.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Mr. President, karamihan kung hindi lahat ng mga senador ay may iminungkahing pagbabago. Pinakinggan natin at sinubukan mapaunlakan ang bawat hiling ng ating mga kasamahan sa mayorya o minorya man na pabilang. Dumaan ang budget na ito sa proseso na alinsunod sa saligang batas. Tumagal po tayo ng 8 araw sa debate. Umabot po tayo sa 4:50 a.m. nung pinakahuling araw po natin. Gayunpaman, mababatid, Mr. President, na patuloy pa rin humahalili ang panukala sa malawakang adhikay ng administrasyon ni Presidente Bongbong Marcos para makamit ang bagong Pilipinas na inaasam-asam nating lahat. Ito po ang iilang amyenda sa panukalang budget para sa taong 2024 patungo sa bagong Pilipinas. In the new Philippines, Mr. President, we are strong and capable enough to defend our sovereignty and to keep our citizens safe. This is why, through your leadership, Senate President Mig Zubiri, we are adding to the already significant augmentations made to the budgets of our national defense agencies such as the Department of National Defense and the different service branches of the Armed Forces of the Philippines. The Senate is prepared to lend even more support in the name of empowering ourselves to better safeguard our national security. Through the joint interventions of the Senate President, Vice Chairpersons De La Rosa, Tolentino, and Estrada, more funds were included in the budgets of the Philippine Army, Air Force, Navy, and the GHQ, or General Headquarters, to purchase much-needed equipment, set up the needed infrastructure, and conduct the necessary capability enhancements and trainings, as well as the Philippine Coast Guard. The Senate support also extends to our agencies maintaining peace and order throughout our country, like the PNP. So the 2024 budget, significant funds remain for the purchase of more body cameras. These are to promote better transparency and accountability for men and women who are part of the 228,000-strong police force who are upholding peace and order in their respective communities. Furthermore, with the recommendations of the Senate President, Senior Vice Chairperson Marcos, Vice Chair De La Rosa, Senator Alan Cayetano, the PNP can expect to receive even more funds. The same is true for the Bureau of Fire Protection through the support of Minority Floor Leader Coco Pimentel and Senior Vice Chairperson Marcos, as well as the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology, or BJMP, through the intervention of Senator Bato de la Rosa and Senator Alan Cayetano. We echo the support offered by Senator Raffy Tulfo for the investigation and detection of crimes and other related activities under the National Bureau of Investigation, or NBI, which will be used for the training of new agents. And then through the intervention of His Honor, the Senate President, the Philippine Coast Guard will receive a significant augmentation for its capital outlay. Mahalaga rin malaman ng ating mga kababayan na sa tulong ni Vice Chair at Deputy Minority Leader Senator Risa Ontiveros, mananatili ang dagdag na pondo para sa pagpapatakbo ng Marawi Compensation Fund, or MCB, at sa Marawi Compensation Fund. Sigurado po tayo na ikatutuwa ito ng ating kapatid na si Senator Robin Hood Padilla. Tinataya naman sa mga darating na buwan, huhupa na ang mataas na inflation o ang patuloy na pagtaas ng mga presyo ng mga bilihin tulad ng pagkain. Gayunpaman, pinaigting rin natin ang kakayanan ng gobyerno para siguraduhin ang ating supply pagdating sa pagkain. Maalala, Mr. President, na mismo ang bagong kalihim ng agrikultura, si Secretary Teo Laurel Jr. ang nagsabi na pagdating sa agrikultura, ang marching orders daw ng ating Pangulo ay palakasin ang lokal na produksyon sa pamamagitan ng modernization, mechanization at mas magandang logistics, mas pinalawak na irigasyon, pag-deliver ng binhi at pataba sa tamang panahon, ang pagkakaroon ng sapat na processing facilities at ang pagbawas ng mga middlemen sa pagitan ng mga magsasaka at ng merkado. Kaya para matupad ang lahat na ito, mananatili ang mga realignment na minungkahi ni Vice Chair Cynthia Villar para sa Department of Agriculture at ang mga attached agencies nito, tulad ng dagdag na pondo bilang suporta sa National Corn Program, pagpapaingtig ng pest surveillance and monitoring activities in all regions, sa pagtaguyod ng food safety and Philippine good agricultural practices, sa pagtatag ng mga 5 plant and genetic resource centers and laboratories, at sa pag-implementa ng National Stock Assessment Program sa ilalim ng National Fisheries Research and Development Institute para masuporta ng mga bagong tatag na fisheries management areas. Nagpasok rin po tayo, Mr. President, ng dagdag na pondo para lalong maimplementa ang Sagip-Sakalo ayon sa hiling ni Vice Chair at Deputy Minority Leader Ontiveros. Meron ding pagdagdag para sa Enhanced Kadiwa Program, Kadiwa Food Hub Project at Young Farmers Challenge, Fund Upscale Grant ni Senior Vice Chair Amy Marcos, ganun din para sa binhi ng Pag-asa Project ni Vice Chair Senator Grace Poe, yung Regional Fisheries Learning Hub ni Senator Alan Cayetano, yung Tamban Agriculture Hatchery Production Program sa Zamboanga Peninsula sa pag-uudyok ni Vice Chair Francis Tolentino, at yung pagtayo ng greenhouse na may hydroponic farming technology ni Senate President Pro Temp at Senior Vice Chair Lauren Legarda. Patuloy rin ang pagbibigay ng Senado sa buong sektor ng edukasyon ng pinakamataas na prioridad pagdating sa budget. Ayon sa Saligang Batas, pinagtibay ng Senado ang pagtaas ng budget para sa school building program ng DepEd. Kasama din dyan ang dagdag na nirekomenda ni Senior Vice Chair Pia Cayetano sa ilalim ng government assistance at subsidies ng DepEd para maimplementa ang Senior High School or SHS voucher program na magbibigay ng oportunidad para sa ating kabataan na pumasok sa senior high school ng libre o ng may mas mababang gastusin. Nandyan din po ang dagdag sa Educational Service Contracting Program for private junior high schools at para sa mga scholarships sa mga state universities and colleges or SUCs sa pag-udyok ni Education Chair Senator Win Gatchalian, pag-udyok ni Senate President Pro Temp Lauren Legarda din. Pati na din ang financial assistance para sa mga nag-aaral sa mga SUCs at sa dunong sa ilalim ng CHED, Commission on Higher Education. Nandyan din ang special provision na nagsasaad na pagdating sa mga bagong grantees ng tertiary education subsidies, dapat bigyan ng prioridad ang mag-aaral na kasama sa listahanan 2.0 ng DSWD na galing sa low-income households. Mr. President, pagdating naman sa TESDA sa pag-uudyok ni Majority Floor Leader at TES naman ng bansa si Senator Joel Villanueva, mananatili ang dagdag para sa Tulong Trabaho Fund at sa suporta ng ating Senate President, ng ating Majority Leader, ng ating Minority Leader, Senior Vice Chairs Cayetano, Marcos, Vice Chairs Binay, De La Rosa, Ejercito, Go, Ontiveros, Senators Alan Cayetano and Raffy Tulfo, may dagdag para sa Training for Work Scholarship Program or TWSP at para sa Special Training for Employment Program or STEP or STEP. Mr. President, to be true venues for learning and enrichment, our schools need to be safe havens for our children. Hence, through the recommendation of Deputy Minority Leader Ontiveros, we added funds under the DepEd for a Child Protection Program, and through the initiatives of Vice Chair and Basic Education Chair Sherwin Gatchalian, the Learner Support Program was augmented by 50 million to strengthen ongoing mental health programs and advocacies. We're also continuing the funding for the 5,000 peso cash allowance for teachers, formerly known as the Chalk Allowance, which is the subject of the Kabalikat sa Pagtuturo Act, which we passed in this chamber, primarily sponsored by Senator Ramon Bong Revilla. Mahalagang banggitin, Mr. President, na mananatili ang iilang special provisions na makakatulong sa pagpapaigting ng ating sistemang pang-edukasyon. Kasama dito ang special provision hinggil sa school-based feeding program ng DepEd na magbibigay ng masustansyang pagkain sa mga mag-aaral mula kindergarten hanggang grade 6 na wasted, severely wasted, stunted o severely stunted upang maengganyo silang pumasok at mag-aral. Para sa bagong Pilipinas, makakaasa ang mga kababayan natin sa mga programang pang-ayuda sa tulong ng Senate President Pro Temp, Majority Floor Leader, Minority Floor Leader, Senior Vice Chairs Cayetano, Marcos, Vice Chairs Binay, De La Rosa, Ejercito, Estrada, Pontiveros, Poe, Tolentino, Villar, Mark Villar at Cynthia Villar, at Senator Alan Cayetano, Escudero, Lapid, Revilla, Tulfo, may dagdag na pondo para sa mga programang pang-ayuda tulad ng Assistance to Individuals in Crisis Situations or AICS at ang Sustainable Livelihood Program or SLP sa ilalim ng DSWD dito sa Tulong Panghanap Buhay sa ating Disadvantaged Displaced Workers Program o TUPAD at ang Government Internship Program o GIP sa ilalim ng DOLE or Department of Labor and Employment at marami pa pong iba. Formal man dineklara noong nakarang Hulyo ang katapusan ng public health emergency sa bansa, patuloy pa rin ang pagtutok ng Senado sa pagpapalakas ng ating sistemang pangkalusugan at nutrisyon sa pangunguna po nila Senior Vice Chair Cayetano at Vice Chair Bongo. Nais kasi natin ipakita na ang gobyerno ay mananatiling handa na preserbahin at pangalagaan ang buhay ng bawat isa. Mababati dito sa dagdag pera sa budget ng Department of Health o DOH. Kasama dito ang malaking dagdag para sa medical assistance to indigent and financially incapacitated patients or MIPE na may halagang 7.1 billion at para sa Health Facilities Enhancement Program or HFET para pagandahin ang mga pasilidad at kagamitan ng iba't ibang ospital sa bansa. Naisama natin ito dahil sa tulong nila Senate President Zubiri, Senate President Pro Temp Legarda, Minority Floor Leader Pimentel, Senior Vice Chairs Marcos at Cayetano, Vice Chairs Binay, De La Rosa, Ejercito, Estrada, Gatchalian, Go, Ontiveros, Poe, Tolentino at Villar, at Senators Alan Cayetano, Cheese Escudero, Lito Lapid at Ramon Bong Revilla. This representation has also taken steps to continue funding support for the Lung Center of the Philippines to conduct the first ever successful lung transplantation in the Philippines and hopefully ramp such operations up through the years to become a full-fledged lung transplantation program. Matagal na po tayong nagtatransplant ng mga kidney at liver dito sa Pilipinas. Panahon na po para palawakin pa natin lalo ang ating kakayanan sa mga organ transplants nang sa ganun lalo pa natin mapreserbahan at pahabain ang buhay ng ating mga kababayan. Mr. President, it also bears emphasizing that the Senate is affirming steps towards ensuring that our people are afforded proper nutrition. Augmentations to the DOH budget were maintained so that even more mothers who are nutritionally at risk are provided support and supplements as recommended by the EDCOM and its commissioners. A special provision was also retained mandating the National Nutrition Council to administer an online tracker system regarding the programs, expenditures, and general implementations of the Kalusugan at Nutrisyon ng Magnanay Act, or the first 1,000 Days Act, authored by Senator JV, Deputy Minority Leader Ontiveros, Senate President Pro Tem Legarda, Vice Chair Grace Poe, and this representation. The amended budget proposal also retains a provision setting aside a significant amount for the purchase of drugs, medicines, and vaccines, and mandating that up to 80% of these shall be allocated to provinces where disease incidence is high. Bukod dito, maglalaan din po ng malaking pondo ang DOH para sa emergency benefits and allowances for healthcare and non-healthcare workers. Makakaasa din, Mr. President, ang sambayan ng Pilipino na tuwirang aarangkada sa susunod na taon ang malawakang programa sa pabahay ng Administrasyon Marcos, lalo na't mananatili ang dagdag na budget para sa pabahay para sa pamilyang Pilipino o 4PH program ng DSUD or the Department of Human Settlements. Ayon kay Deputy Minority Leader Ontiveros, noong debate sa plenaryo, yung budget ng 2024 daw ang unang pagkakataon na may sapat na alokasyon para sa subsidiya para sa pagbayad ng interes at iba pang financial assistance o subsidies para pati ang mga pabahay sa loob ng mga syudad o in-city housing ay magiging abot-kaya para sa mas maraming pamilyang Pilipino. Inaasahan na sa kolaborasyon ng DSUD at ng pribadong sektor, magsisitayuan na ang mga pabahay sa 2024. Sa mungkahi naman ni Vice Chair Senator Bongo, may dagdag na pondo para sa Integrated Disaster Shelter Assistance Program ng DSUD. Hindi lamang nakatuon ang ating budget sa paglatag ng mas maraming kalye, tulay, riles, daungan at paliparan, ito'y nakatutok din po, Mr. President, sa pagsisigurado na ligtas ang lahat ng ating mga manlalakbay at commuters. Hindi lang natin sinigurado na may pondo para sa mga major programs at projects ng DOTR para sa rail transport, land public transport, aviation infrastructure at maritime infrastructure sa pamumuno po ni Senator Grace Poe at ang DPWH para sa asset preservation, network development, bridge program at sa iba't ibang support programs for tourism and trade. Mananatili pa rin ang ating mga special provisions hinggil sa paglalaan ng malalaking pondo para sa construction, rehabilitation at improvement ng pasilidad para sa mga persons with disabilities or PWDs na mga nakakatanda na mga gender-responsive na palikuran. Sa mungkahi ni Majority Floor Leader Villanueva at muling pag-udyok ng Move as One Coalition, napapaloob sa ating panukala ang mandato ng DPWH na pati sa Tourism Road Infrastructure Program, kailangan kasama ang mga tinatawag na active transport infrastructure tulad ng bike lanes, pedestrian walkways, at iba pang mga infrastruktura para sa kaligtasan ng mga commuters. Ikatutuwa naman ni Senate President Zubiri na may dagdag sa ilalim ng DOTR para sa pagbili ng airport fire truck at pagtayo ng communications tower sa minamahal niyang Bukidnon Airport. Mapapangiti din si Senator Robin Hood Padilla dahil sa dagdag na pondo para sa Diet Airport ng Camarines Norte. Sinuportahan din natin ang panukali ni Senator Cheese Escudero na maglagay ng special provision sa budget ng Bureau of Immigration para magamit ang mga immigration fees at collections nito para ma-reimburse nila ang mga Pilipinong pasahero na napilitan gumastos dahil na-defer ang boarding o pinigilan silang makaalis ng bansa ng walang court order. Malaking tulong ito sa mga kababayan natin na OFWs na nakasalalay ang kanilang hanap buhay sa kanilang paglayag. Malaking tulong ito sa mga kababayan natin na OFW na nakasalalay ang kanilang hanap buhay dito sa kanilang pagbiyahe at pagtrabaho. Bukod sa pagdugtong-dugtong ng ating mga kalye at tulay, tumutok din tayo sa pagpapaigting ng ating internet connectivity, kaya may dagdag din sa budget ng DICT na tinulak nila Vice Chair Senator Grace Poe at Vice Chair Senator Gatchalian at ng NTC, National Telecommunications Commission, ayon sa hiling mismo ng ahensya. Wala ring saysay ang ating pagtutok sa infrastruktura kung hindi natin pangangalagaan ang ating kalikasan at paigtingin ang ating kakayanan para maigpawan ang mga hamon ng climate change, Mr. President. Agrikultura ang isa sa pinakaunang sektor na maapektuhan sa harapan ng nagbabagong klima. Kaya po sinuporta natin ang pagdagdag ng pondo ng DA-OSEC na nirekomenda ni Minority Floor Leader Pimentel para sa mainstreaming of climate-resilient agriculture in regional programs and projects. Sinigundahan din po natin ang mga rekomendasyon ni Senate President Pro Temp at UNEP Laureate Lauren Legarda para dagdagan ang pondo ng Climate Change Commission. Dagdag pa dito, meron din tayong pondo para sa implementasyon ng Philippine Ecosystem and Natural Capital Accounting System o PENCAS Act na pinasa ng Kamara sa third and final reading itong nakaraang linggo. Bilang pagkilala na tayo isang kapuluan o archipelago, sinuportahan natin ang mungkahi ni Senate President Mig Zubiri na dagdagan ang pondo ng DENR, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, para makapagtayo sila ng mga bagong marine stations, pagandahin ang kasalukuyang marine stations at palakasin ang pakikipagtulungan sa mga partner marine stations. Ito ay kasama sa mga dagdag na isinulong ng Vice Chair ng DNR, Chairperson Cynthia Villar, sa kabuuang budget ng DNR. We have also affirmed our support for the government's push towards cleaner, more stable, and renewable energy sources to power the country's growth and development. This is why, on top of ensuring adequate funding for the Department of Energy's major programs and initiatives, we have additional funds for the ERC as recommended by Vice Chair Sherwin Gatchalian. Steps were also taken to include special provisions on conducting a feasibility study and the eventual construction of an offshore wind integration port as part of our bid to diversify our installed capacity to more renewable energy sources. Sumunod po tayo sa hiling ni Vice Chair Gatchalian para ipagpatuloy ang pondo sa ilalim ng UP system para sa Philippine Energy Research and Policy Institute, pati ang nirekomenda niyang dagdag na pondo para sa pagpapatakbo ng Nuclear Energy Program Implementing Organization at para sa Waste-to-Energy component ng Renewable Energy Development Program na siguradong ikatutuwa din ng ating Energy Chair, Senator Raffy Tulfo. Maalala, Mr. President, at noong tinanong ni Minority Floor Leader Pimentel si Vice Chair Mark Villar tungkol sa budget ng DTI, nalaman na umabot na raw sa milyon-milyong dolyares ang mga foreign investment pledges dito sa bansa, resulta ng mga biyahe ni President Marcos. Kaya patuloy rin ang suporta ng panukalang budget para sa mga programa at proyekto para maging mas magandang investment destination at globally competitive ang Pilipinas. Kasama po dyan, dagdag na pondo para sa ating Board of Investments para maisakatuparan nila ang pagkakaroon ng mga green lanes para sa mga tinatawag na strategic investments, pagpapalago ng mga serbisyo at publiko, produkto na gawa sa Pilipinas. Nandiyan din ang dinagdag sa Shared Service Facilities o SSFs ng DTI na pumasak kamakailan lang sa Senado at umuusad na po sa Kamara para tulungan ang ating mga MSMEs sa kanilang mga produkto at makabenta silang mas marami sa merkado. Mananatili rin ang pondong nilaan natin para sa pag-implementa ng Tatak Pinoy Bill na umuusad na rin sa Kamara. May dagdag din para sa implementasyon ng Philippine Creative Industries Act na sponsor ni Minority Leader Pimentel, alinsunod sa hiling din ni Senior Vice Chair Amy Marcos, at para sa pangkabuhayan sa pagbangon at ginhawa program sa pag-uudyok ni Vice Chairperson Bongo. Ever the promoter of Philippine products and creativity, Senate President Pro Temp Lauren Legarda also vouched for additions to the export and trade promotions programs of the Center for International Trade Exposition and Missions, or CITEM, as well as fund increases for several agencies, the National Book Development Board, the Department of Foreign Affairs, the National Commission for Culture and the Arts. This also, in particular, our participation at the 2025 Frankfurt Book Fair, where the Philippines will be the first Southeast Asian country to be recognized as the guest of honor. Our budget also retains its support to ongoing efforts to encourage innovation and to boost our capacities in science and technology and research and development. Upon the suggestion of Vice Chair Tolentino, the DOST and its attached agencies will receive a significant increase of over 1 billion pesos. Upon the request of the NEDA, a special provision is included that a portion of the existing innovation fund shall constitute an innovations revolving fund to be used for grants for innovations programs and projects under the Philippine Innovation Act. Tuloy-tuloy din ang suporta para sa turismo, lalo na't ayon mismo kay DOT Secretary Frasco, ang sektor na ito raw ang pangalawang pinakamataas ang kontribusyon sa paglago ng ekonomiya sa unang 6 na buwan nitong taon. Mahalaga sa ating budget, paigtingin ang mga galaw para muling ihikayat ang buong mundo na pumunta at bumisita dito sa atin na alam kong yun din ang sinusulong ng ating Chair ng Tourism at Vice Chair ng Finance Committee for Tourism, Senator Nancy Binay. Isang halimbawa nito ang special provision na taon-taon nating nilalagay sa ilalim ng Tourism Promotions Board na naglalaan ng malaking pondo para sa Tourism Promotions Fund alinsunod sa Republic Act 9593. Bukod pa dito, Mr. President, mayroong pagsuporta sa Manila Food and Wine Festival na minungkahi ni Senate President Pro Temp Legarda at dagdag para sa Market and Product Development Operations ng DOT, na kasama din ang inyong lingkod, Senate President Zubiri. Naniniwala kami, Mr. President, na malaki ang ambag hindi lamang sa paglago ng ating turismo, kundi sa kalinangan natin bilang isang bansa kung preserbahin at bigyan ng angkop na pagpapahalaga ang ating kasaysayan at heritage o ang ipinamana ng ating mga ninuno. Marahil ito rin ang paniniwala ng ating mga kasamahan dito sa Senado, kung kaya't walang humadlang sa pagpasa ng budget ng ating mga cultural agencies tulad ng NCCA, Komisyon ng Wikang Pilipino, National Historical Commission, National Library, National Archives, Cultural Center of the Philippines, and the National Museum. Gayunpaman, pinaigting pa rin ni Senate President Pro Tem Legarda ang pondo ng NCCA para sa iba't ibang proyekto tulad ng Likhaan, Rondalia Festival, Slow Food Festival, Comics Festival, Schools of Living Traditions, Conduct of Cultural Mapping Activities, at marami pa pong ibang programa. Meanwhile, Mr. President, the drive towards more decentralized, locally driven governance shall continue under the proposed budget for 2024. As part of the automatic appropriations, the national tax allotment that will be afforded to our local government shall amount to 871 billion, 6.2% higher than what has been allocated for this year. Another automatic appropriation is the block grant to the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region, which you authored or shepherded in this colleague, amounting to 70.5 billion, 9% higher than this year, which our colleague Senator Robin Hood Padilla, ating kapatid, will appreciate very much. We are confident with more funds going directly to the grassroots, government funds will be directed towards programs and projects that contribute to the welfare and betterment of everyday citizens. Sa tulong naman ni Senate President Zubiri, Minority Leader Pimentel, ng inyong lingkod, Senior Vice Chairpersons Cayetano, Marcos, Binay, Ejercito Estrada, Gatchalian, Go Tolentino, Mark Villar, Cynthia Villar, Alan Cayetano, Lapid at Revilla may pagdagdag sa ilalim ng Local Government Support Fund para sa financial assistance to LGUs. Patuloy rin po ang suporta ng Senado para sa Department of Foreign Affairs. Maalala, Mr. President, dinagdagan pa nga ng Senado ang pondo ng DFA. Karapat-dapat ang pagdagdag na ito, lalo na't sa gitna ng maraming gulo, digmaan at problemang kinakaharap ng buong daigdig, mahalaga na kaya pa rin natin itaguyod at pagtibayin ang mga magagandang relasyon sa ating mga kaibigang bansa. Kaya rin natin sinuportahan ang panukala ni dating Foreign Affairs Secretary Senator Cayetano na dagdagan ang pondo ng mga embahada at Consulate General ng Pilipinas sa iba't ibang bansa tulad ng Italy, Cambodia, UK, United Kingdom, Bahrain, Republic of Korea, Singapore, Netherlands, at Myanmar. Ultimately, Mr. President, the drive for a new Philippines needs to coincide with efforts to build a better, more transparent, and responsive government. In line with this, we have included additional funds under the DBM, or the Department of Budget and Management, to facilitate various Philippine open government partnerships, such as nationwide OGP campaigns, the conduct of relevant meetings and workshops, the OGP Asia and the Pacific Regional Summit, and the holding of the Public Expenditure Management Network in Asia. The OGP was established in 2011 as a worldwide effort to encourage government and non-government actors to work together towards promoting transparency, accountability, and greater citizen empowerment and dialogue in public affairs. The Philippines was one of the founding members of this effort, and the DBM is the chairperson of the OGP. Mr. President, there can be no better platform for synergy and transparency than through the crafting, implementation, and monitoring of the national budget. That's why we've deemed it cogent to support the request of the DBM upon the recommendation of Senate President Pro Tem Legarda to lend as much support as we can to this effort. We are also continuing support towards making our government personnel more adept at long-term visioning and preparing for opportunities that the country may take advantage of in the future. Hence, upon the urging of Senior Vice Chair Cayetano, our budget contains significant funding for futures thinking endeavors, including relevant workshops, training modules, and research activities in SUCS and the Development Academy of the Philippines, DAP, as well as the operation of futures thinking offices in key agencies, such as the DOH and the DILG. Meanwhile, upon the request of Minority Leader Pimentel, we have established or included under the budget of the UP system funding for the establishment of the so-called Governance, Reform, Innovation, and Transformation Laboratories, or GRIT Labs. Mr. President, para sa budget na ito, tayo nagpuyat at nagdebate ng higit sa isang linggo. Ilan sa atin, naubusan ng panahon para sa mahal na sa buhay, para lang tumayo at magsalita, magtanong at siyasatin ng maigi ang panukalang budget. Inuumaga na kasi ang ating mga debate, pero lahat ito para magampanan ang mandato ng Senado ayon sa saligang batas. Mahalaga ang pambansang budget, hindi lang pondo ang pinag-uusapan, mga plano at polisiya, minsan nga may nabubuksan na investigasyon. Sa mahahabang debate, nililinaw natin kung ano nga ba ang mga hakbang na nais tahakin ng gobyerno patungo sa kaunlaran at kasaganahan. Sa ganitong paraan, Mr. President, pinapalooban natin sa budget ang pangarap natin bilang isang bansa. Allow me to reiterate that through the inputs and support of our colleagues in the Senate, we have come up with a proposal that still aligns with the broad goals of the Marcos administration towards transforming the Philippines into a more prosperous nation. We would not have achieved this without the support of the Senate leadership, our dynamic Senate President, our Senate President Pro Tem Lauren Legarda, our Majority Floor Leader Joel Villanueva, our Minority Leader Coco Pimentel, of all our Vice Chairpersons in the Committee of Finance, Senator Pia Cayetano, Jaime Marcos, J.V. Ejercito, Mark Villar, Rizon Tiveros, Nancy Binay, Bato de la Rosa, Jingoy Estrada, Sherwin Gatchalian Bongo, Grace Poe, Francis Tol Tolentino, and Cynthia Villar, and all of our Senate colleagues. We cannot thank enough all the staff who worked tirelessly on this, from my own office, from the offices of other senators, from the Senate Secretariat, most especially to the LBRMO men and women led by Director Irene Palanca. Mr. President, we now have a measure that brings us closer to a new Philippines. Thank you very much, and good afternoon.
Thank you very much to our distinguished sponsor, Chairperson of the Committee on Finance, Senator Sonny Angara. While we're waiting for the Majority Floor Leader session suspended.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. There being no other committee amendments, I move to close the period of committee amendments. I so move, Mr. President.
There being no objection, motion is approved.
Mr. President, with the consent of the body, I move to open the period of individual amendments and recognize our good sponsor, Senator Sani Angara. I so move, Mr.
There
President.
being no objection, motion is approved. Senator Angara is recognized.
No amendments from this representation, Mr. President.
There be no amendments. Majority Leader.
With no other individual amendments, Mr. President, with no other individual amendments, Mr. President, I move to close the period of individual amendments. I so move, Mr. President.
There being no objection, motion is approved. May I ask for a 1-minute suspension, Majority Leader?
Mr. President, as we already closed the period of committee and individual amendments with the consent of the body, I move to approve on second reading House Bill number 8980. I so move, Mr. President.
There being no objection, motion is approved.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Congratulations to the sponsor for second reading approval.
Mr.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
With the consent of the body, this being a certified measure, I would like to request the Secretary, Mr. President, to read the letter of certification from President Ferdinand Bongbong Romualdez Marcos Jr.
There being no objection, Secretary, please proceed to read the certification.
Malacanang Palace, Manila, 20 September 2023. Senator Juan Miguel F. Zubiri, Senate President, Senate of the Philippines, Pasay City. Mr. Senate President, pursuant to the provisions of Article 6, Section 26, Paragraph 2 of the 1987 Constitution, I hereby certify to the necessity of the immediate enactment of House Bill Number 8980 entitled An Act Appropriating Funds for the Operation of the Government of the Republic of the Philippines from January 1 to December 31, 2024, in order to address the need to maintain continuous government operations following the end of the current fiscal year, to expedite the funding of various programs, projects, and activities for FY 2024, and to ensure budgetary preparedness that will enable the government to effectively perform its constitutional mandate. Best regards, very truly yours, the President of the Philippines.
Mr. President, the Senate Minority Leader is seeking the floor. I move that he be recognized, Mr. President.
Our distinguished Senate Minority Floor Leader is recognized, Senator Aquilino Coco Pimentel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before we proceed to the third reading, so we're back to the basic issue of the propriety of the certification of the President of a bill which is in the regular course of the business of the legislature is passed every year, Mr. President. So I will not object anymore. I'll just make a manifestation of my continuing objection to the use of a presidential certification for the budget when I do not see any emergency or calamity right before us, which will be addressed by the certification. So because of this issue, Mr. President, I will advance my vote. I am abstaining.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your abstention.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We take note of the manifestation of our Minority Leader. And with that, Mr. President, and with the consent of the body, I move to consider on third reading House Bill Number 8980. I so move, Mr. President.
There being no objection, motion is approved. We ask now the Secretary to proceed with the roll call vote.
House Number 8980, An Act Appropriating Funds for the Operation of the Government of the Republic of the Philippines from January 1 to December 31, 2024. Roll call vote. The Honorable Senator Angara, Senator Binay, Senator Cayetano Alan, Senator Cayetano Pia, Senator De La Rosa, Senator Ejercito, Senator Escudero, Senator Estrada, Senator Gatchalian, Senator Go, Senator Ontiveros, Senator Lapid, Senator Legarda, Senator Marcos, Senator Padilla, Senator Pimentel, Senator Poe, Senator Revilla, Senator Tolentino, Senator Tulfo, Senator Villanueva, Senator Villar Cynthia, Senator Villar Mark, the Senate President.
With 21 affirmative votes, 0 negative votes, 1 abstention, House Bill Number 8980 is approved on third reading. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. President, and we'd like to congratulate the distinguished sponsor and chairperson of the Senate Committee on Finance for his hard work and dedication to service. We'd also like to congratulate our vice chairpersons. Mr. President, our Deputy Minority Leader, Senator Risa Ontiveros, is seeking the floor. I move that she be recognized, Mr. President.
Our distinguished Deputy Minority Floor Leader, Senator Risa Ontiveros, has the floor.
Salamat kayo, Mr. President. With congratulations as well to the chair and to all the colleagues. I'd just like to briefly manifest that I'll be submitting in writing my explanation of yes vote. Salamat kayo, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, at this juncture, and with the permission of the body, I move that we proceed to the Senate President's designation of Senate conferees to the Bicameral Conference Committee on the disagreeing provisions of House Bill Number 8980 pertaining to the General Appropriations Act of 2024. I so move, Mr. President.
There being no objection, the designated members of the Senate to the Bicameral Conference Committee on the disagreeing provisions of House Bill Number 8980 are to follow. The chair of the Finance Committee is the chair of this BICAM for the Senate panel, Senator Angara. Senior Vice Chairpersons, namely Senator Pia Cayetano, Senator Lauren Legarda, and Senator Amy Marcos. Vice Chairpersons, Senator Cynthia Villar, Senator Bato de la Rosa, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, Senator Bongo, Senator Ontiveros, Vice Ontiveros, Senator Nancy Binay, Senator Grace Poe, Senator Francis Tolentino, Senator Mark Villar, Senator Ejercito, and Senator Estrada. Sorry, gutom na po tayo. Majority Floor Leader.
May I ask for a minute suspension, Mr. President?
Session suspended for a minute.
President, with the permission of the body, I move that we consider proposed Senate Resolution number 869. This is the resolution expressing profound sympathy and condolences on the death of Hiroyuki Hosoda. I so move, Mr. President.
Is there any objection? There being none, the motion is approved. Consideration of proposed Senate Resolution number 869 is now in order. The Secretary will read the title and the text of the resolution.
Resolution expressing the profound sympathy and sincere condolences of the Senate of the Philippines on the death of Hiroyuki Hosoda, former Speaker of the House of Representatives of Japan.
Mr. President, to sponsor the measure, I move that we recognize our Senate President, Juan Miguel Zubiri. I so move, Mr. President.
Senate President Juan Miguel Zubiri is recognized to deliver his sponsorship speech.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Maraming salamat to the Majority Floor Leader. Mr. President, today I sponsor a resolution expressing the profound sympathy and our condolences of the Senate on the death of our friend, the Honorable Hiroyuki Hosoda, former Speaker of the House of Representatives of Japan. Speaker Hosoda was an accomplished statesman who had a 50-year career in public service, including being the Chief Cabinet Secretary and the House Speaker. It was during his time as Speaker that he graciously received our Senate delegation to Japan last April of 2023 for a very fruitful parliamentary visit. We were there with Majority Floor Leader Senator Joel Villanueva, Senator J.V. Ejercito, Senator Sani Angara, Senator Amy Marcos, Senator Pia Cayetano, Senator Win Gatchalian, Senator Grace Poe, Senator Nancy Binay, Senator Mark Villar, and Senator Lito Lapid. I'd like to note that it was his birthday on April 5 when we visited him, when the Senate delegation visited him, and we sang a birthday song, special birthday song for the dear Speaker. We remember the Speaker for his warmth and kindness and his eager commitment to building a strong connection with our country. I am sure he would have been very happy about our hosting of the APPF. And actually, that's when I found out about it, is when I inquired to the head of the delegation of the Japanese Parliament. He mentioned to me that the good Speaker passed away just a week before the APPF. And we have to take note as well that the APPF is an initiative of Japan, the parliamentarians of Japan. In his honor, we commit to continuing his work of strengthening the friendship between our countries, our two countries, Japan and the Philippines. Once again, our deepest condolences to the family of Speaker Hiroyuki Hosoda and to the Japanese Parliament. Thank you, Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I join the statements and speech of our distinguished Senate President Zubiri, and with the permission of the body, I will move that all members of the Senate be made authors of this resolution. I so move, Mr. President.
Is there objection? There being none, motion is approved.
Mr. President, no member wishes to interpolate or propose amendments to the measure. I move that we adopt proposed Senate Resolution number 869, subject to style. I so move, Mr. President.
Is there any objection? There being none, proposed Senate Resolution number 869, subject to style, hereby adopted.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, at this juncture, with the permission of the body, I move that we consider proposed Senate Resolution number 870. This is the resolution commending relevant national and local government units for successfully hosting the 31st Asia-Pacific Parliamentary Forum. I so move, Mr. President.
Is there any objection? There being none, the motion is approved. Consideration of proposed Senate Resolution number 870 is now in order. The Secretary will read the title and the text of the resolution.
Resolution commending the relevant national government agencies and local government units for their contributions in the successful hosting of the 31st annual meeting of the Asia-Pacific Parliamentary Forum held in Manila on 23 to 26 November 2023.
Mr. President, to sponsor the measure, I move that we recognize the architect of the 31st APPF hosting of the Philippines, no other than our Senate President, Senator Juan Miguel Zubiri. So move, Mr. President.
Senate President Juan Miguel Zubiri is recognized to deliver his sponsorship speech.
Thank you very much to our dear hardworking Majority Floor Leader and to my dear Senate President. Mr. President, it's an honor to sponsor this Senate resolution, commending all the national and government agencies and offices for their contributions to our successful hosting of the 31st annual meeting of the Asia-Pacific Parliamentary Forum from November 23 to November 26. Earlier, I greeted all of you, the Senate staff, Secretariat, as well as Senate officers and all the members of the Senate. This time, I'd like to greet all the government agencies and thank them for their support. I'm happy to say that the APPF 31 was a resounding success, bringing together 19 member countries for a productive slate of plenary sessions and working groups, not to mention the drafting committee, and unanimously approving 10 resolutions on political and security matters. 10 out of 10. Political security matters, economic and trade matters, regional cooperation, gender development, and women in leadership. This could not have happened without the help and coordination of a number of agencies and offices that worked with us to ensure a smooth and memorable experience for our delegates. So with your permission, my dear distinguished colleagues, I'd like to thank all the offices who generously offered their time, services, and expertise for the APPF. First of all, we'd like to thank the Office of the President for marshaling the troops, so to speak, through the issuance of a Memorandum Circular Number 36 to direct all concerned government agencies to render full support to the Senate and the House of Representatives in our hosting of the APPF. We also thank the President for graciously hosting a welcome reception for our delegates and letting them know that the doors of Malacanang and of the country are always open for cooperation and strengthened bilateral and multilateral friendships. We thank the Department of Foreign Affairs. Mr. President, they did an extremely great job. They were top of their game in this hosting. And we thank them for providing invaluable technical and protocolar assistance during the entire conference, and even holding briefings for our senators in preparation for the event. We'd like to also thank the Bureau of Immigration for facilitating immigration procedures for all the APPF delegates. And I'd like to say special mention to this because each and every delegate that I had spoken to, Mr. President, ang binanggit po nila, pagdating pa lang sa airport, inalagaan na po sila at napabilis daw lahat ng process na kanilang papeles papasok na ating bansa. We thank as well the Philippine International Convention Center for accommodating us in the 3-day conference, and the Cultural Center of the Philippines for providing the cultural presentation during the inaugural ceremony. We thank as well the Department of Tourism for warmly welcoming the delegates upon the arrival of the Ninoy Aquino International Airport and for providing the delegates with information on the Philippines' various natural and cultural attractions. As a matter of fact, on a side note, the Russian delegation wanted to stay here for 3 more weeks. I know because Senator Pimentel's nodding his head, and we were together, of course, taking care of the Russians. They wanted to stay for 3 more weeks because they wanted to see how beautiful, they wanted to see the rest of the Philippines and how beautiful it is. We also thank the Tourism Infrastructure and Enterprise Zone Authority for providing welcome banners and other tourism promotional displays for the event. We thank the Department of Trade and Industry for installing the One Town, One Product exhibit at the event venue. And we thank Senator Lauren Legarda for enhancing that One Town, One Product display with her own carpets and decorations from her office upstairs in the Senate. A big thank you as well to the local governments of the City of Pasay, City of Taguig, who joined us in one of the events, I believe when we hosted them in Taguig at the second night at BGC Shangri-La, the City of Makati as well, the City of Parañaque, the City of Manila, for providing assistance in traffic management during the event and issuing relevant permits, and the local government as well of Tagaytay City and the Office of Senator Francis Tolentino for doing an awesome job in hosting the cultural tour in Tagaytay. We'd like to also thank the National Museum for hosting a museum tour for the delegates, which I heard they enjoyed very much. We thank the Manila International Airport Authority for receiving the delegates upon the arrival at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport and facilitating the arrival and departure procedures of the APPF delegates. We thank the Metropolitan Manila Development Authority for initiating improvement works along the APPF ceremonial routes, for leading in the installation and projection of physical and digital APPF promotional materials. We thank them for that because from the whole stretch of EDSA, we could see the APPF materials, and including here in Pasay. And for providing traffic management assistance during the event alongside the Philippine National Police, who also provided overall police security support and escort to the delegates. Most especially, once again, Mr. President, we'd like to thank the hard-working men and women of the Senate Secretariat, the Senate proper, and the House of Representatives employees and congressional staff for the invaluable work in organizing and facilitating all the activities of the APPF. I am so proud of all of you. I'm so proud of all of us, of our country. But it may be a while before we will accept another hosting event. Maybe in another decade or so. Wala namang holdover. And finally, we thank the Filipino people for their support and understanding over the course of the APPF. I'm happy to say that our delegates felt very welcomed by our people, and I'm certain that the great impression that we left on them will rebound and be strengthened partnerships between our countries, which will mean more investments, more jobs, more tourists, and better lives for our people. We even took the initiative during that time, Mr. President, to campaign for the membership or elections of the Philippines to the non-permanent, as a member of the non-permanent delegate to the Security Council of the United Nations. And I'm happy to say out of the 18 countries that were there, we were able to get at least 16 confirmed messages of support for our candidacy to the non-permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council. Kaya, I can't say this enough. Maraming salamat po, Secretary. I know you had sleepless nights together with your staff and all the staff of the senators. Maraming salamat po sa inyo lahat. Sa mga senador na tumulong both physically, morally, lahat na sa pag-entertain, pag-alaga ng ating mga delegates, pati na rin kay Senator, for example, Senator Amy, who really went out of her way to make sure that the PICC looked very nice and beautiful. To all of you, without having to name all your names once again, I mentioned earlier, Pia, in my earlier speech, and all the other delegates. Mabuhay po kayo. You have made my heart full and the Filipinos' hearts full. We thank you. I'm so proud of you. Maraming salamat. Mabuhay ang Pilipinas.
Thank you, Senate President. Likewise, it was a shining moment for Philippine Congress, and because of your leadership, we made it all possible. So congratulations to all the organizers of APPF. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Indeed, we are all proud of our hard work, most especially the works of our Senate President, our Senate Leader. Mr. President, next to co-sponsor the measure is the distinguished gentleman from the province of Davao and Bohol, no other than Senator Bato de la Rosa. I move that he be recognized.
Senator Bato de la Rosa is recognized.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. President, I stand before you today to co-sponsor PS Resolution number 870, commending the numerous government agencies that were crucial in successfully hosting the 31st annual meeting of the Asia-Pacific Parliamentary Forum at the Philippine International Convention Center in Pasay City, Philippines. The APPF is the Asia's Pacific's premier parliamentary forum that brings together representatives of the people of 28 countries to discuss pressing political, security, and socio-economic issues and challenges of common concern confronting the region. As the Philippine head of delegation, this representation felt a huge honor in hosting this prestigious event, and it would not have been possible without the various government agency support, dedication, hard work, and commitment. From the very start of the event, the government agencies showed their commitment by ensuring the smooth delivery of the program. We can see their work through various aspects such as logistics, security, protocol, hospitality, and accessible assistance if an emergency comes or not. They made sure that this event would be simply seamless and successful. From hindsight, I know that the Department of Foreign Affairs has a massive role in making this event seamless because without their diplomatic efforts and professional expertise in coordinating with their international counterparts, I know it won't be easy to have a successful EPPF. Creating positive international relations and fostering a welcoming environment for the delegates is always commendable. I would also like to express my gratitude for those efforts, for the efforts of the following agencies. The Department of Tourism for the efforts in showcasing the Philippines' rich culture and heritage to our APPF guests, leaving them with a lasting impression of our warm hospitality. The Department of Transportation, the Bureau of Immigration, Manila International Airport Authority, the Philippine National Police for maintaining a safe and orderly environment throughout the event, ensuring the security and well-being of all delegates and participants, particularly the Japanese delegation, who were very happy to have police escorts wherever they go. The motorcycle cops that were escorting them anywhere they go. The Metropolitan Manila Development Authority for controlling the traffic on the major parts of the roads in Metro Manila in preparation for the event. The Department of Health for its readily prepared measures in preventing the spread of any illness and ensuring the health and well-being of all attendees. National Museum and Tourism Infrastructure and Enterprise Zone Authority for providing assistance including visa issuance, airport arrivals, cultural tours, and security arrangements. The local government units of Manila, Pasay, Parañaque, and other Metro Manila mayors for maintaining cleanliness in their EORs during the event. Also, the Tagaytay LGU and the Office of Senator Tolentino for the extended EPPF 31.5 at Tagaytay City. And of course, I will not fail to mention the Senate officials and staff who helped in securing the success of this event, from preparation down to implementation. You are the wind beneath our wings. And I would like to make special mention to our colleagues who composed the drafting committee, especially the chairman, Senator Loren Legarda. Also present there were our majority leader, Senator Joel Villanueva, and Senator J.B. Ercito, who really made wonders, because I attended the last APPF in Thailand, and every time all the draft resolutions were set aside at the committee, at the working committee level. It doesn't reach to the drafting committee. But what happened here was that they made the impossible. All the all the draft resolutions were approved at the drafting committee. So palakpakan po natin sila for their efforts and very commendable effort, Mr. President. To all other government agencies that contributed to the event's success, your combined efforts made a significant difference in showing the capabilities of the Philippines as a host country, strengthening regional cooperation and relationships with the Asia-Pacific. Mr. President, nais ko din pong magbigay-pugay sa world-class na ganda ng PICC, albeit medyo matanda na, pero may pagmayabang pa rin natin. Sabi ko nga po sa aking Facebook post, hindi na tayo mag-aatubiling mag-host ng mga internasyonal na prestihiyosong pagtitipon. Maraming salamat, PICC. This success is a significant opportunity for the Philippines because we are showing commitment to international cooperation and diplomacy, which will improve our country's reputation and open up new possibilities for collaboration and partnership in the region. Once again, I express my deepest gratitude and appreciation to all government agencies involved. You earned this commendation for your outstanding contributions to making a lasting impression for the Philippines internationally. And also, I would like to apologize for Senator Coco Pimentel. Nakalimutan ko palang siya pala yung nag-chair ng drafting committee. Vice chair?
Vice Chair.
Alternate chair. Alternate chair. But you were there. You were present all the time. And you made sure that all those draft resolutions passed whether paano nyo ginawa yon, hindi ko maisip. Pero salute for your effort. Thank you, Mr. President. Maraming salamat.
Thank you, Senator Bato de la Rosa. Please warn us again if you want us to host another forum like this. Text muna ako, Senator de la Rosa.
Mr. President, we'd like to put on record that our dear colleague, Senator Bato de la Rosa, was the most famous
Yes.
and sought after chair of the well-loved chair of the country delegation, Mr. President. Mr. President,
And I'd just like to add also, I'm sorry, just really quickly, Senator De La Rosa is well loved by Russia. The Russian delegation specifically asked him, together with Senator Coco Pimentel, to visit Russia. And he said that he is very well protected now in Russia and other countries in Southeast Asia, Thailand, Cambodia. Mahal na mahal sa na itong mga
he
bansang
did
ito.
very well, Mr. President, in refereeing, Mr. President,
Yes.
all the countries of the world.
Idol
Mr.
siya,
President,
idol.
Mr. President, if I may, just a short. Since there's nobody who made their intentions clear kung sinong gusto mag-host, nobody accepted the next hosting. Does it mean that we will host again next year, Mr. President?
No. As I mentioned earlier, before we recognize my distinguished star palangga, Senator Pia Cayetano, we raised the bar, I think, very high because initially, Malaysia was willing to accept on the first night, doon sa Malacanang, nag-uusap kami. On the second night, doon hosting natin sa BGC Shangri-La, nandun na sila ni Lani Misalucha, tsaka yung mga world-class singers na pinakita natin. Masarap yung pagkain, magaling yung mga staff natin. Sabi sa akin ng Malaysia, how can we do this? How can we do this? And he looked to his wife and he said to his wife, this is very difficult. Ganyan. So, I think speaking to the Malaysian Senate President and Ambassador, they still have to seek clearance from the Prime Minister. Kasi high level na siya. And like what we did, we also seek clearance from the Office of the President. So, I believe what was told to me by the Secretariat or the temporary Secretariat of the APPF is that if there are no countries that are willing to host, it goes back to the original host, which is Japan. Supposed to be Japan. So, I do not know if next year we would have Japan. What it would have been nice though to have an official turnover nung isang araw, no? Pero walang nag-commit pa eh. Walang nag-commit. So yes, Senator Pia Cayetano, the chair of the women's group of the APPF.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I'd just like to commend His Honor, our Senate President, our Head of Delegation, Senator De La Rosa, and everybody who made this a success. I know that there was a lot of work involved. When you hear the candid reports, parang masaya lang. But what I wanted the public to know is that these kind of events may make or break crisis in the future that we will face. Because at the end of the day, these countries are represented by human beings, by people. And no matter what a country stands for, human beings are governed by their emotions. And emotions include deep feelings of friendship, deep trust for certain people. So when we are able to cultivate these kind of relationships, not just with our neighbors, because Asia Pacific includes countries that are not our neighbors. In fact, I was surprised because this is the first Asia Pacific event I've been to that include South American countries. So parang naging Asia Pacific plus plus. I've never attended an Asia Pacific organization of any other sort that included that. So, but it's a bonus. It's a bonus. So these events gave us the opportunity to really cultivate these relationships. And it's very likely that one or more of those who participated over the weekend, who we shared meals with, who we sang songs with, who our colleagues, some colleagues played golf with, will be the future prime minister of their country. And the problems we will face in the future are very scary. Shortage of water, access to our own bodies of water, which we know is a very sensitive issue, use of resources, access to food supplies, and so on and so forth. So to have these good relationships, Mr. President, this is immeasurable, and I thank His Honor for his leadership, because you can go to any negotiating table and walk away with nothing, despite all your good arguments, despite all the universal laws, all the principles, general principles of laws on your side. But you can walk away with nothing. On the other hand, you can walk away with compromises, with deals, with programs that will benefit our people, simply because we forge friendships during this APPF 31 and the past one and in the future. So I truly commend His Honor for his leadership. Our head of delegation, and there was lots of hard work that had to happen. I know His Honor met with every delegation, talagang pati yung membership natin sa Security Council na pag-usapan, and our Senate President Pro Temp, Senator Lauren Legarda, worked so hard in the drafting committee. It's not easy, Mr. President. I don't know if it was brought up. I don't know if she took the floor. She didn't take the floor, no? But it was not an easy task. Let's put this on record, because there were very strong differences in opinions. China is a member of APPF. They have a different stand on how to handle the West Philippine Seas issue. We have a very strong stand, but we were able to come up with language. Mr. President, if we can replicate what we did in APPF in every other stage, we're going to be better off. Because at the end of the day, through tiyaga, leadership, patience, we were able to find compromises. In my own little way, in the Committee on Women, although we did not talk about security issues, but as we women and gender advocates always say, and I'm looking at our Deputy Minority Floor Leader, when you empower women, you are also able to strengthen all the other sustainable development goals. So we had those similar debates also in the Women's Committee, Mr. President. And we also had from my perspective, makikita niyo po yung alignment of forces during the debates. But I'm also happy to report, which I have reported to the Senate President, that we were also able to resolve it in the same spirit of understanding where one was coming from, taking a pause, and then understanding where the other one is coming from, and then at the end of the day, makikiusap po tayo na okay lang ba na we move forward with the language proposed by this group, and then in the end, pumayag sila. So I think the Philippines has a big role to play, not just now, but in the future on world peace, Mr. President. And again, I thank the President for his leadership and everybody who participated in all their different ways, including and most especially our Secretariat and the agencies, executive agencies that assisted us. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Madam Pia. Thank you so much for your kind words. But I'd just like to share to the body what I shared with Senator Coco and Senator Risa earlier. I think people-to-people participation is really important. I'll tell you why. And kidding aside, the night of our hosting in the Shangri-La, BGC, I had an opportunity to drink with the head of the Chinese delegation. He came to me, I gave all the tables the Don Papa Ram. Sabi ko, let's toast to Filipino-made alcohol. So we gave Don Papa Ram to everybody. They really enjoyed it. And we were already halfway into the drinking session. The Chinese delegation head came to see me, just one-on-one. And I went to one corner with him, and he was talking to me, and he was so thankful that we did not mistreat them. I think what they were expecting was a harsh treatment, or let's say, pabayaan natin sila. Na hindi natin bibigyan ng arrival honors, hindi natin sila bibigyan ng magandang kwarto, hindi natin bibigyan ng magandang facilitation on many things. And he was so thankful that we really took care of him. We had officers, our own political officers called LOs that were taking care of these people. But what I think touched our hearts is when it was just me and him and the interpreter. And I told him, when he thanked me, and he thanked our group for taking care of them, I said, the Filipino people are good people. We are kind and good people. I said, I'm sure the Chinese people are also good people, right? Sometimes the policy is what makes us fight. But at the end of the day, we're good people. And you are good people too. We just want peace in our region. And he stared at me for like 10 seconds while the guy was interpreting. Then he spoke and he said, I agree with you. Then we held hands, 2 hands. I agree with you. Siyempre, nakainom na kami. And alcohol diplomacy. But for the record, and I'd like the public to see this, because that's how it works. Senator Pias is absolutely correct. We join so many forums, but when we don't reach out intrapersonal relationships with these people, when they go back at the end of the day, they have no amor, no love for the country that they had come from or the people that they have met. But in this case, with all of you exerting the efforts of taking care of each and every one of them, pumayag sila doon sa drafting committee. The following day, it was a lot easier, and I believe they were not anymore objecting to, imagine, I mentioned earlier, freedom of navigation and overflight. The respect for UNCLOS in our resolutions is there. That is according to the DFA, that is not a coup de grace, but it was a feat on its own, internationally, diplomatically. It was a win. So let's capitalize on that, and I wish them well, because I'm sure the Chinese people, the mothers there, the fathers, the people, they're also mothers, they're also fathers, they're also children, they're brothers and sisters to their own families. They don't want war, they don't want gulo. Deep inside of them, they want peace across the region and progress. So I think that's what resonated when I talked to him.
Yeah, Mr. President.
So, yes, Mr. Senator Bato de la Rosa.
If I may, taking your lead, you want us to become a very gracious host. So, if you have observed during the first night, the dinner at Malacanang, the welcome dinner,
Yes.
kita mo doon yung Chinese delegate Siya lang talaga mag-isa doon sa table niya. Nobody wanted to talk to them. Ang kasama niya, yung interpreter lang niya. But pasalamat tayo, Senator Tolentino was so kind enough to talk to this Chinese delegate at dinamay pa ako. Dinala pa niya ako doon hanggat hindi na ako nakaalis. Dalawa lang talaga kami kausap ng Chinese delegate doon sa table niya. Wala, nobody, even other countries, nobody dared to come close to them. So,
Thank you for
salamat,
that.
Senator
Thank you for
Tolentino.
making them feel welcome.
Thank
But
you, Mr. President.
At the end of the APPF, nakita niyo ba yung ating group picture, my distinguished colleagues, my majority floor leader? Nakita niyo yung group shot natin, yung naghawak kamay? Ngayon lang ako nakakita na magkatabi ang Japan, China, and Korea. Naghahawak kamay. Diyan lang yung nangyari yan. Dito lang yan nangyari sa Pilipinas. Ha? Sa Pilipinas. So maybe if we can, hopefully God will bless us with that kind of friendship and shared responsibility for our area of the Asia Pacific. Thank you,
Mr.
Majority
President.
Leader.
Mr. President, before I make the necessary motions, may I just put into the records that Senators Legarda and Estrada wanted to insert into the records their co-sponsorship speech. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, no other member wishes to interpret or propose amendments to the measure. I move that we adopt proposed Senate Resolution number 870, subject to style. I so move, Mr. President.
There being no objection, the motion is approved. Proposed Senate Resolution number 870 is adopted.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And with the permission of the body, I move that all members of the Senate be made co-authors of this resolution. I so move, Mr. President.
There being no objection, motion is approved. May we also do the same for the first resolution?
We did,
Oh, we
Mr.
did?
President.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Majority.
Mr. President. Mr. President, at this juncture, I move that we transfer from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders, Committee Report number 172 on Senate Bill number 2492. This pertains to the Philippine Maritime Zones Act. I so move, Mr. President.
There being no objection, motion is approved.
Mr. President, I move that we consider Senate Bill number 2492 under Committee Report number 172.
There being no objection, motion is approved.
Mr. President, may we ask the Secretary to read the title of the
please
measure?
read the title.
An act declaring the maritime zones under the jurisdiction of the Republic of the Philippines.
Mr. President, to sponsor the measure, I move that we recognize the chairperson of the Special Committee on Philippine Maritime and Admiralty Zones to deliver the sponsorship speech, Senator Francis Tol Tolentino. I so move, Mr. President.
The learned, three-time masteral graduate, expert on international law and maritime zones, Senator Tolentino is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, dear colleagues, the Senate Special Committee on Philippine Maritime and Admiralty Zones is honored to sponsor Senate Bill 2492, or the Philippine Maritime Zones Act of 2023, under Committee Report number 172, which is a substitute bill in substitution of Senate Bill 852, 1089, 1352, 1649, 2294, 2394, 2411, and 2347, filed by Senators Revilla, Ejercito, Estrada, Hontiveros, Legarda, this representation, Gatchalian, De La Rosa, and Tulfo. Mr. President, I stand before you to emphasize the crucial significance of maritime zones law in the Philippines. As an archipelagic nation with a vast expanse of waters, understanding and upholding maritime zones law is not merely a legal obligation, but a paramount necessity for our nation's security, economic prosperity, and environmental well-being. Maritime zones law delineates the boundaries that define our sovereign rights and jurisdiction over the surrounding seas. The Philippines' exclusive economic zone and territorial waters are not just lines on a map. They are the lifeblood of our maritime activities. They provide us with exclusive rights to exploit and manage marine resources, including fisheries, minerals, and energy, Mr. President. Mr. President, after 3 Congresses, the Senate is finally able to move this foundational bill to the plenary session. Allow me to begin with the premise that binds us Filipinos. The Philippines is an archipelagic and maritime nation. With a total of 7,641 islands, we are the second largest archipelago in the world. With more than 62% of the country's municipalities and cities, more than 62% of the country's municipalities and cities thrive on our coast, many of us rely on the bounty of our seas for food. In 2020, there was a Food and Nutrition Research Institute, FNRI report stating that the fish consumption is 14 kilogram per individual per year and comprises about 40% of the total animal source protein consumed by Filipinos. We have a long tradition of living and working at sea. Not only do our waters contribute significantly to our food and economic security, our seas, our oceans are an integral component to our identity as Filipinos. With all the wealth from our waters, both in terms of culture and natural resources, we are obliged to have the collective responsibility to uphold I'm sorry, Mr. President, I have a call from the Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces. We have a long tradition in living and working at sea. Not only do our waters contribute significantly to our food and economic security, our seas, our oceans, as I've said, are an integral component to our identity as Filipinos. Mr. President, the fundamental interests of the Philippines are inextricably linked to its waters. This necessitates and underscores the importance of having effective maritime governance. At its core lies the clear identification of maritime areas over which the Philippines exercises sovereignty, control, or sovereign rights and jurisdiction, and of the specific legal powers that the Philippines would exercise in those areas. Our Constitution has bestowed upon this august body the task to safeguard national interests by ensuring that the necessary laws and policies are in place for the state, and I quote, to protect the nation's marine wealth in its archipelagic waters, territorial sea, and exclusive economic zone, and reserve its use and enjoyment exclusively to Filipino citizens, unquote. The committee, your committee, therefore, cannot overemphasize enough that the adoption of this measure is not only critical and imperative, but is very timely and necessary. Narinig ko po kanina, Mr. President, yung inyong nabanggit tungkol po sa pagtanggap ng People's Republic of China sa ilang lines doon po sa Asia-Pacific Parliamentary Forum. Mr. President, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, governs the allocation of maritime areas and the states' rights, entitlements, and responsibilities over this. It has been more than 41 years, Mr. President, since UNCLOS was adopted, and as a party to the convention, the Philippines is duty-bound and legally bound to exercise its entitlements, perform its treaty obligations, and ensure that our domestic laws are in harmony with the provisions of UNCLOS. Mr. President, in 1998, the Philippines also declared, and I quote, that it intends to harmonize its domestic legislation with the provisions of the convention, unquote. And I'm referring to UNCLOS. In 2009, Mr. President, the Philippines made the first significant step through the enactment of Republic Act 9522, which made the baselines of the Philippines fully compliant with UNCLOS. The Supreme Court of the Philippines declared in the case of Magallona versus Executive Secretary that, and I quote, the enactment of UNCLOS compliant baselines law for the Philippine archipelago and adjacent areas as embodied under Republic Act 9522 allows an internationally recognized delimitation of the breadth of the Philippines' maritime zones and continental shelf, unquote. After the passage of the baselines law, Mr. President, the next logical step for the Philippines to take is to enact a law that will establish with certainty our territorial sea, contiguous zone, exclusive economic zone, and our continental shelf, and allow us to further understand and exercise our rights and obligations in each zone as underscored by UNCLOS and other relevant laws. The Philippine Maritime Zones Act will enable the Philippines to fully enforce applicable maritime laws and enjoy its rights over its territory and exclusive economic zone. I'm sorry about that, Mr. President. That's, again, a distraction coming from some of our friends helping protect the West Philippine Sea. The Philippine Maritime Zones Act will enable the Philippines, as I've said, to fully enforce maritime laws and enjoy its rights over its territory and exclusive economic zone, and pave the way for clarifying and updating maritime laws and policies which have been enacted prior to UNCLOS. This will further fortify our rights and entitlements over our maritime zones and provide the country with a strong diplomatic negotiating tool in pursuing our interests therein. In addition to this, the clear delineation of the maritime boundary of the Philippines will help relevant government institutions in harnessing ocean resources and maritime spaces that are crucial in developing the country's blue economy potential. According to a study by Dr. Rodora Azanza, the blue economy potential of the Philippines using 2007 prices is pegged at $966 billion to $1.5 trillion if the continental shelf is included. In sum, Mr. President, the Maritime Zones Law will help the Philippines in numerous ways and can even serve as our foundational policy that, one, serves as the driving force for the Philippines to forge a comprehensive maritime security framework. Number two, advance the Philippine interest, most especially in terms of protecting, sustainably harnessing, and maximizing the Philippines' marine resources. Third, it will provide guidance on the rights, duties, and entitlements of the Philippines on different maritime zones. And finally, it can be utilized to further the goals of other relevant maritime laws of the Philippines. My dear colleagues, one of our predecessors had the distinct honor of serving as the country's lead negotiator when the law of the sea was being debated at the United Nations. Senator Arturo Tolentino left all of us a message when he spoke at the 189th plenary meeting of the Third United Nations Conference on the Law of the Sea in 1982. Senator Tolentino told us that UNCLOS, and I quote, is a historic milestone in the progressive development of international law, a monumental achievement of cooperation and goodwill among nations. Its provisions, many of them introducing new concepts, will govern the seas and the resources of the world for generations to come, even long after the individuals who participated in the conference are long gone and forgotten, unquote. It is now our turn, my dear colleagues, to continue the work of Senator Arturo Tolentino by adopting one of the most important laws in our country's history. The Philippine Maritime Zones Act of 2023 will be inscribed as a pivotal moment in our maritime history. It is now time for Congress, particularly the Senate of the Philippines, to stand up for what is ours and take this fundamental step in ensuring that our national interests in Philippine waters are protected by passing this law that will govern the seas and resources of the Philippines for generations to come. I also remind our dear colleagues, Mr. President, of the many incidents of aggression from our Chinese counterparts that we have experienced recently in the West Philippine Sea. One too many incidents of aggression already, Mr. President. It is time we take a stand against this bullying, Mr. President. With the passage of this Maritime Zones Act, Mr. President, we are taking a firm stand. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat, distinguished colleague. Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President, may I just be allowed to co-sponsor the measure briefly, Mr. President?
Yes, please, Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Sa ating pong mga kasamahan dito sa Senado, lubos at buong puso po nating sinusuportahan ang maagap at mabilis na pagpasa sa Senate Bill number 2492 sa ilalim ng Committee Report number 172 o ang Philippine Maritime Zones Act. Isa pong karangalan at pribilehiyo na tumayo bilang author at co-sponsor kasama ang tagapangulo ng Special Committee on Philippine Maritime and Admiralty Zones na si Senator Francis Tol Tolentino. Mr. President, the enactment of this landmark legislation will serve as a reinforcement of our rights as an archipelagic state, recognized by no less than the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, and will be part of the legal, political, and diplomatic strategies of the country to enforce the rule of law in our maritime domain. Hindi po lingid sa ating kaalaman ang likas na kayamanan ng ating karagatan. Kasama po rito, Ginoong Pangulo, ang mga sumusunod. Coral reefs. Ang coral reefs po in the Philippine Sea has an estimated area of 4.64 kilometer squared or 464,000 hectares. And the country is believed to have the third largest largest reef area and one of the most diverse coral reefs in the whole world, Mr. President. Sa larangan naman po ng oil and natural gas, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, there are unexplored hydrocarbon stores at the Reed Bank located near the Spratlys Islands. It is estimated that the South China Sea in total contains approximately 11 billion barrels of oil and 190 trillion cubic feet of natural gas in proved and probable reserves. Mr. President, sa fish production, it must be noted that the total fisheries production in the West Philippine Sea was noted by the Philippine Statistics Authority at around 304,586 metric tons from 2018 to 2022. Mr. President, these are just some of the highlights that prove how important it is to establish and assert our claims. Sa gitna po ng mga hamon na pinagdadaanan ng ating mga mangingisda sa ating karagatan, at para sa patuloy na pagtataguyod ng ating soberanya, ang Philippine Maritime Zones Act ay magsisilbing isang deklarasyon, isang paninindigan sa ating makasaysayang tagumpay sa Permanent Court of Arbitration sa Hague noong taong 2016. Ito po ay isang anunsyo na tayo bilang mga Pilipino ay hindi natatakot at patuloy na ipaglalaban ang sariling atin. Mr. President, we put our full support to the passage of this measure and we are confident that our colleagues will also do the same. Maraming salamat po and may God bless us all. Mr. President, the co-sponsorship speech of Senator Ligarda, Mr. President, she would like to just insert into the records, Mr. President.
Thank you. May I also be made the
Together,
co-author as well?
together with our Senate President, Mig Zubiri, be inserted into the records, Mr. President.
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
President, next to co-sponsor the measure is the distinguished gentleman from Valenzuela, no other than Senator Sherwin Gatchalian. I move that he be recognized, Mr. President.
Senator Sherwin Gatchalian of the city of Valenzuela is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thank my seatmate for allowing me to go ahead. Thank you, Senator Bong Revilla. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise today to co-sponsor Senate Bill number 2492, also known as the Philippine Maritime Zones Act. This piece of legislation represents a watershed moment, an audacious affirmation of our inherent rights and authority over our maritime zones, meticulously outlined in the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea and reinforced by the 2016 South China Sea Arbitration Award. Our maritime zones, as defined by this proposed measure, signify more than just mere bodies of water. They represent our identity, our dignity, and our sovereignty. Through this proposed measure, we are not merely acknowledging our legal rights. We are wielding them as our strongest defense and the most powerful statement affirming our sovereignty and sovereign rights over the maritime zones of the Republic of the Philippines. This bill acknowledges the various zones that form part of our maritime domain, from internal waters to the continental shelf, as well as all territories over which the Philippines has sovereignty or jurisdiction within its maritime zones, emphasizing our commitment to safeguarding every inch of our rightful territory. Moreover, this bill affirms our rights and duties in areas beyond national jurisdiction as provided for in the UNCLOS, as well as our obligations to protect and preserve the maritime environment and to conduct marine scientific research for the benefit of the Filipino people. It also manifests our commitment to the rule of law and the peaceful resolution of conflicts in accordance with international law. Mr. President, this bill is long overdue. The moment has arrived for us to match our words with actions, not merely aligning ourselves with the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea and the 2016 arbitral ruling, but also by further enabling Filipinos to responsibly enjoy the abundant resources within the Philippines' vast maritime and archipelagic waters. In 2018 to 2022, our country's fishing industry had an average production of about 917 metric tons. In terms of value, the average fishing yield during this period amounted to 64 billion pesos. For almost the same period, the gross value added from ocean-based industries averaged at 769.3 billion pesos, which is about 4.1% of our gross domestic product. Just imagine the untapped potential and how much more this could be beneficial, especially to our fishermen in the West Philippine Sea. This bill is a tribute to our heroes who fought and died for our freedom and sovereignty, and to our brave men and women who continue to patrol and protect our waters and resources. This bill is a legacy that we will leave to our children and future generations who deserve to inherit a prosperous and secure nation. Before I end, allow me to express my gratitude to the principal sponsor of this bill, Senator Francis Tolentino, and to my fellow co-authors and co-sponsors for their unyielding commitment to championing the cause behind this proposed measure. Let us pass this bill and show the world that we are a proud and sovereign nation, that we respect and uphold the law, and that we are ready and willing to defend our maritime zones. Sa pamamagitan ng panukalang batas na ito, ating ipinapakita na tayong mga Pilipino ay may determinasyon na manindigan, handa nating ipagtanggol ang ating soberenya at tayo ay hindi papayag na mabaliwala ang halaga ng ating lupang tinubuan. Sama-sama nating ipanalo ang Pilipinas. Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, next to co-sponsor the measure is the distinguished gentleman from the great province of Cavite, Senator Bong Revilla Jr. I move that he be recognized, Mr. President.
Our distinguished colleague, Senator Bong Revilla Jr. is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. To say that it is timely that this matter has reached the plenary is an understatement. This is not only a concern of timeliness, but truly a matter of public urgency whose consequences are too heavy to be ignored. Lubha na po ang pangangailangang kumprontahin at tugunan ang mga isyong pumapaloob dito. At kung hindi ito kagyat na matutugunan, we stand to lose so much more, Mr. President. Lalo na sa gitna na patuloy na tila pangungutya sa ating soberanya. Walang ibang magtatanggol at magigiit ng ating mga karapatan, kundi tayo-tayo ring mga Pilipino. Tayong mga binigyan ng boses at mandato ng ating mga kababayan upang gumawa ng mga hakbang sa ngalan ng pagprotekta sa kabuuan ng ating bansa. Ito nga po ang mismong kadahilanan kung bakit inakda ng inyong lingkod sa tulong ng mga eksperto ang Philippine Maritime Zones Bill. This representation was first filed this measure in this Congress with the most profound understanding of the significance of guarding our waters. While I claim no expertise on the matter, this was born out of an intense fire burning in my heart. Higit sa nagliliyab at nagpupuyos na galit sa tuwing lalalapastanganin ang ating mga kababayan sa ating mismong katubigan, mas matindi ang pag-aalab sa aking puso na manindigan. If you don't have power on your side, then it is better to have the law on your side. Lubos nating naintindihan na naaayon ang ating pagsasabatas ng maritime zone sa mga kapasyahang, kasunduan at iba pang legal na dokumento. Sineselyuhan lamang natin ang mga pagkilalang ito dahil sa atin naman talaga yan. Alam po nating masyadong technical lang usapin. It goes beyond the metes and bounds. Usaping legalidad at politikal ang bumabalot sa paksang ito. But it should not intimidate us from doing something and doing it quickly. Kaya po nagpapasalamat tayo sa aking kababayan na si Senator Francis Tolentino sa kanyang mabilis na pag-aksyon. We thank you for your expertise which you generously shared. Let me stress that what the experts who helped craft this measure have said. We cannot do only political steps in the same way that we cannot only take legal actions. We should do both. And we cannot do that if we do not have a strong legal basis. And the bill on the Philippine Maritime Zones is not only a good start in putting our foot down, it is hope to be the beginning of the end of all bullying. Ang Pilipinas na duyan ng magiting ay hindi kailanman yuyuko at matitinag sa anumang intimidasyon o pananakot. At kailangan natin ng solido at matibay na pundasyon na tutuntungan ng ating mga argumento, karapatan at kapangyarihan. At yan nga mismo ang layunin ng Philippine Maritime Zones Act. Let this be the legacy we will leave our countrymen. Hindi lamang para sa atin, kung hindi higit sa lahat, lalo na sa ating mga kabataang magmamana ng kung anumang ating iiwan. Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo.
Mr.
Maraming
President,
salamat.
next to co-sponsor the measure is the gentleman from Bohol and Davao, Senator Bato de la Rosa. I move that he be recognized, Mr. President.
Our distinguished colleague, Senator Bato de la Rosa, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President and Majority Leader. Good afternoon, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues. I rise today before this August chamber to co-sponsor Senate Bill number 2492 under Committee Report number 172 entitled Philippine Maritime Zones Act, which seeks to declare the maritime zones under Philippine jurisdiction. This particular legislation reinforces our commitment to the UN Convention on the Law of the Seas, UNCLOS, and ensures the recognition of our archipelagic status on the global stage. Tunay na ang Pilipinas ay isang malaking kapuluan, isa sa mga pinakamalaking archipelago sa mundo, sunod lamang sa Indonesia. Ang mapalibutan ng yamang tubig ay may kaagapay na hamon at ganoon din mga oportunidad para sa patuloy na pag-unlad. Ang panukalang batas na ito ay angkop, napapanahon at isang mabisang sagot sa mga hamon at pasakit na kasalukuyan nating kinakaharap bilang isang bansa. Nitong mga nakaraang buwan ay nasaksihan natin ang mga agresibong ganap na maaari nating kaharapin sa loob mismo ng ating mga maritime zones. Mula sa mga pagdinig ay ating napag-alaman na ang pagtatalaga ng maritime zones ay isa sa maagap na hakbang para maiwasan ang mga sitwasyong tulad ng nabanggit. As an archipelagic nation, our maritime zones are extensive and diverse, ranging from the international waters to our exclusive economic zone and beyond. These zones hold the promise of prosperity and play a crucial role in defining our national boundaries. With the passage of this measure, we recognize the significance of implementing policies that ensure their effective management and protection of those resources over which we have sovereign rights. Our international waters are the arteries through which our trade flows, thus facilitating economic activities. Preserving the integrity of these internal waters is not merely a matter of convenience. It is a necessity for economic development and overall stability of our nation. Moving outward, our archipelagic waters encompass the entire archipelago, serving as a protective shield and defining the sovereign boundaries of our nation. One of the most vital components of our maritime zones is the exclusive economic zone. This vast expanse of ocean provides us with exclusive rights to explore and exploit its living and non-living resources. The wealth hidden beneath the waves, be it fish stocks, minerals, or energy resources, holds the potential to fuel our economic growth and improve the lives of our citizens. However, with great opportunity comes great responsibility. As custodians of these maritime zones, we must ensure their sustainable use and protect them from threats such as overfishing, illegal activities, and environmental degradation. Strengthening our maritime law enforcement agencies, such as the Philippine Coast Guard and the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, is paramount to safeguarding the integrity of our maritime zones. Furthermore, the strategic location of our maritime zones holds implications for our national security. As we witness evolving geopolitical dynamics, it is crucial that we invest in the capabilities of our armed forces to secure our maritime interests. Thus, our Navy and Coast Guard must be equipped not only to defend against external threats, but also to respond effectively to these natural disasters and humanitarian crises that may arise within our maritime domain. In conclusion, the Philippine maritime zones are not just geographic delineations, they are the lifelines of our nation. Their proper management, protection, and strategic development are essential for the continued growth and security of our country. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Distinguished colleague.
Thank you, Mr. President. To allow our colleagues to study further the measure, I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 2492 under Committee Report number 172. I so move, Mr. President.
There being no objection to the motion, motion is approved.
Mr. President, some administrative matters, and with the permission of the body, I move that we proceed to the Senate President's designation of Senate conferees, the Bicameral Conference Committee on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2439 and House Bill number 8443 entitled the Philippine Ecosystem and Natural Capital Accounting System, or the PENCAS Act. I so move, Mr. President.
There being no objection, the following members are hereby designated as Senate conferees to the Bicameral Conference Committee on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2439 and House Bill number 8443. They are Senator Lauren Legarda as chairperson, Senator Pia Cayetano as a member, Senator Aquilino Coco Pimentel as a member, part of the minority, on the part of the minority.
Thank you
So
very much.
designated, permission of the body.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, at this juncture, I move that we adjourn the session until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Wednesday, November 29, 2023. I so move, Mr. President.
There being no objection, motion of the majority floor leader, session is adjourned till tomorrow, November 29 at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Thank you very much. Have a safe evening, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, dear colleagues.